Hello and welcome to the Mental Toughness Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Siebold, and this program is sponsored by the Mental Toughness University that we've been running for corporate America for many, many years, trying to help companies increase sales and market share. But this won't just be a show about selling mental toughness training to corporate America. It's really just about mental toughness in general. So if you're an athlete, if you're a business person, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a success coach, if you're a parent, really anyone that's teaching mental toughness or wants to be more mentally tough, that's really the purpose of the show, is to share with you a lifetime of ideas. I've worked with professional athletes, Olympic athletes, major corporations. I think I've worked for, I used to have an alligator wrestler I worked with back in the 90s. A guy wrestled alligators. Now, you got to be mentally tough to wrestle an alligator, and he was. But, so I worked with all kinds of different people. Companies, organizations like Johnson & Johnson have used our mental toughness training program. You name it, GlaxoSmithKline, Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, it goes on and on. And organizations like the Miami Marlins baseball team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Boston Celtics, lots of sports teams use our mental toughness training. So it's really for anyone who wants to be more mentally tough, or if you're building something, especially you're going through obstacles, psychological obstacles, and people that teach it, people that coach it. Okay, that's really what the show is for. So I want to give you the benefit of 40 years experience in this particular field. What you can expect is hard-hitting information. So if you like someone that's kind of fluffy, I am not your guy, okay? If you've read any of my books, I've written 12 books on mental toughness. One of my most popular ones is the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, which has been sold all over the world for many years. And I've sold about 1.6 million copies of my books. So I've been out there. I've got a lot of experience, had some pretty good successes over the years. So I think we're going to try to give it to you very straight. So it might offend you sometimes, but that's not the purpose, but it is to give it to you straight. So today I want to talk about the first chapter in the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the world-class book. And that's purposefully, I made this the first chapter 20 years ago when I wrote this book. And it's living in objective reality. In other words, operating your life from a framework of reality, not fantasy. Let's face it, most people are living in kind of a fantasy mindset. Look at all the things that are going on in politics all over the world, the society right now, what's happening. People are believing things that are absolutely not true, and they know they're not true, and they still run their lives based on these things. And it's pretty crazy. Usually those people don't get anywhere. They don't get very far because they're trying to build a life and success or a business or a career on falsities, things that just are patently not true. So there's real value in looking at objective reality, living your life in objective reality versus subjective reality. Okay, let's take it to the world of sports. I was a professional tennis player, not a very good one, but I played professional tennis for 2 years. I reached my highest ranking was 512 in the world. Which to a lot of people say, well, there's a lot of people, millions of people play tennis. You're 512 in the world. It's pretty good. Well, pretty good. Yeah. Enough to make a really good living 30 years ago. Not so good. And so the objective reality was I just didn't have enough talent and skill to make it. Yeah. Was I better than most people that ever picked up a tennis racket? Of course. But that's not enough to make the kind of money I needed to really make back in the day, because they didn't make quite as much money as they do now. Now the tennis players are some of the richest people in the world, but back then it wasn't really like that. And so the objective reality was I was not good enough, so I finally retired after 2 years because I got tired of not making any money and working really, really hard. So you have to ask yourself, I think the first thing in life is what you're doing for a living. Maybe you're in sports, maybe you're coaching sports if you're a coach of some kind. Are you doing the things, objectively speaking, not subjectively, not as an opinion, but according to data, according to research, according to results, according to things you can measure? Are you good enough to make it? Are you good enough to get where you want to go? Do you have the skill? Do you have the talent? People say all the time, well, my kid's going to throw like Tom Brady. My kid's gonna play basketball like the late Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or any of these, Shaquille O'Neal, any of these great players, right? They're freaks of nature. That most likely is never going to happen, but they'll base their lives on this. One of the things that I saw happen was the Venus and Serena Williams story that just came out in this movie where Will Smith just won the Academy Award for Best Actor. And I think he was tremendous outside of slapping Chris Rock on stage at the Academy Awards, which was horrific. Very disturbing that a guy his age would do that. I mean, just what a terrible role model for kids. But side story there. But besides that, he played Richard Williams, the father of Serena and Venus. And I'd run into Richard Williams several times because he was in South Florida and I was in South Florida and coaching tennis. And I heard he was a complete nut job. And that's what I heard. And I don't know him. I've met him several times, like I said, but Venus and Serena or not, they became two great athletes. But the point is they made this movie called King Richard, and it's a very, very good movie. It almost won. It was nominated for the best movie. It didn't win, but it was nominated. And I love the movie. I saw it twice. It was fantastic. I knew a lot of the people in there. Rick Macy was another tennis pro I knew in there, and some other people from the tennis world. But the point, kind of the premise of the movie was very Hollywood, that this half crazy father, and I think he probably is a little bit half crazy, was very dedicated, and he decided before these kids were born, Venus and Serena, he was going to make them tennis champions because he wanted a way to get them out of the hood. They lived in Compton, California, not a great place to live, pretty tough streets in some places. And he decided this. So the premise sort of is, well, he orchestrated this whole thing. No, what happened was he probably did a pretty good job at that. Okay, I think he went about it in a completely wrong way. His kids didn't play junior tournaments. That is not a formula to make a professional player. So why did he succeed with Venus and Serena? They're freaks of nature talent-wise. I mean, let's be honest. I've never played with Serena and Venus. I've seen them play, but I've never in person, but I've never hit against them. But I did play against Andre Agassi, Bjorn Borg, lots of really top players. And I will tell you, these people are 1 in 10 million. They're 1 in 100 million in some cases. And you couldn't stop them from being great. There's just no way. They're so gifted. So to imply that he's the creator of these great champions is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure he facilitated some of the process, but he screwed up most of the time. And you can see it in the movie. But my point of the idea is that I think a lot of people are going to get the wrong idea, as much as I like the movie, that what it takes is this orchestration. That's how you make a great athlete. Well, you have to start with a ton of talent, for one thing. That is born. You're born with that. Now, skills are another thing. Can you overcome lack of talent with skills? Yes, to a point. But it's very, very difficult to do. And most players, like a Tom Brady, like a Venus Williams, Serena Williams, like a Michael Jordan, any of these great athletes, they were born 60% of the way there. Now they had to practice and train, but most of their success was they were born with. And now I'm not saying they don't work hard, but you have to have that kind of talent to have that kind of success. So that's the reality. Now people would rather believe, oh no, you can work your way up. That's mostly not true. Not in sports at that level. I mean, in other things, yes, you could be a good player at something, yes. Can you be one of the greatest that ever lived? No. That's something you have to have talent. That's just ridiculous. As a coach of great athletes, I can tell you that's a fantasy. But a lot of people prefer fantasy than reality. Why? It's more fun. It's just more fun, right? You can make up anything you want, and people do all the time. But if you're going to succeed, if you're going to be tough, you got to get in the real world. You got to look at the way things are as opposed to the way we all wish they were. You want to here's an example. You want a history of the world? Here's a history of the world. It's called war. That's the history you can track the history of the world, the known history of the world. Obviously, the world's been around for 14 or 15 billion years, according to, the scientists. But the known history of the world is basically people killing each other. Now, that's not a nice thing to say. You don't want to hear that. I don't like saying it. You don't like hearing it, right? No one likes it, but that's reality. That's what it is. We go from war to war to war. We can do anything technology-wise. We can put a man on the moon. We can have these phones that are unbelievable, that are little computers, but we can't learn. We have not stopped learning how to stop killing each other. It's pathetic. So you've got this dichotomy, right, in life. You've got all these terrible things. The world's a horrible, terrible place. People are terrible. And then you've got this other side of the coin that says the world's a beautiful place and people are amazing and people can be very, very nice and, supportive and loving and all those great things. So it's a dichotomy in the real world and the actual reality. And objective reality makes you look at things as they are. Because once you start doing that, while it may not be as fun as looking at fantasy, you start to see who you are, why you are where you are, based on the decisions you've made. Most of our success or failures are our personal faults or, our personal successes. We deserve a lot of the credit for it. That's the reality. We blame other people, but typically it's not other people's fault, right? And when we succeed, it's usually our work ethic. Maybe it's other people too helping, but we deserve a lot of the credit. So we need to look at objective reality. If you're going to really succeed, if you're going to be tough, you got to wake up to the realities of life, yourself looking in the mirror, other people, the way things work. Is the world fair? You got to be kidding me. The world is totally unfair. It's not an opinion. That's just based on data. It's based on research. It's based on, history. And so that's what objective reality is all about. So isn't this fun? Isn't this a fun show? Aren't I a fun person? Mental toughness is not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be effective. That's how we turned companies around to the tune of $1.3 billion with sales teams over a period of years because we got in their faces. We said, look, wake up. You're either going to sell more and gain market share. You're going to be gone and they're going to replace you with a team that will do that. And so we woke people up, and that's kind of what objective reality does. It wakes you up to reality. But once you calm down and you sort of lick your wounds a little bit, you realize, hey, I have a real chance to do something in whatever you want to do, whether it's a sport or a business or your relationships or anything else, because I'm seeing the world and myself and everything else and everyone else as they are, as I am, as it is, not the way I wish all these people and things were. It's a very, very different way to look at the world, and it's very rare to have people who adopt that philosophy. But that's what this show is predicated on. So we're gonna hit hard. We're gonna be tough, and you're gonna love it because when you start looking at things this way, you'll begin to succeed. You'll stop making excuses, and you'll start to see yourself the way you really are, and then how to go to the next level based on where you are, not where you think you are, or you fantasize that you are. Okay, so I appreciate you tuning into the show. And I hope you'll tune in for episode number 2, which is coming up next.